Game lab number 26 is about collisions. I'm starting here on my whiteboard tonight because here I want to diagram this out. We're going to set up this kind of collision. We're going to put an object on the screen over here on the right hand side. When you write your program, you'll have to stick something over here. It doesn't matter much what, but it'll be some sprite that comes out of the library. And this object is just going to sit here. It's just going to be stationary. It's not going to move. That's going to be kind of important today. This object right here just sits, okay? Then we're going to add another object over on this side over here, but this object that you bring on is going to have some motion to it, and so it's going to move this way. And eventually, it's going to collide with that stationary object. This one's moving, the other one's stationary. And there are different ways that you can set up this collision right here. What happens when they collide? And that's what we're going to look at today. I want you to just start to get used to how you can set them up and what you can do. And it's going to be one stationary object and one moving object. Now there's going to be another collision assignment where we do something a little bit different, but this is what we're going to do today. All right. Now next up, there will be a handout posted on Google Classroom that will kind of guide you through it a little bit here. And here are the four kinds of collisions that we're going to work with. It's bounce, bounce off, collide, and displace. Okay, we'll see what happens in each one of those. All right, so let's go to work on how you do this. Let's hop back over here to code.org, and I'm just going to start a new game lab project, and I'll set this up. Move some equipment out of the way here. Okay, good. All right, so I'm starting from scratch here, and I'm going to try to work fast. So I'm going to bring over some of these. I'm going to need a couple of these. Well, actually, first I got to go to my animation tab over here, and I'm going to use a vehicle. And I think I'll use like this blue spaceship right here. That looks pretty good to me. And then I'm also going to use an obstacle, and I think I'll use oh golly, I'll use like, the spike bottom is okay with me. No, you know what? I don't want to use that. I just changed my mind. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to use the cactus. That's even better. All right, so I've got player, ship, and cactus. Those are the two things that I'm going to use. All right, so let's go back over here. So one of these is going to be a cactus, and it's going to be, I'm going to put it over, I'm going to play around with this a little bit. I'm going to put it over about, I'm going to start at about 350 and down 200, and cactus is going to look like cactus. Got that. All right, and then my other object that's going in here is going to be, I'm going to call it ship. And it's going to start over 200, or over 0 and down 200. And it's going to look like the blue spaceship. Now, I also am pretty darn sure that I'm going to want to rotate the ship 90 degrees. I put an extra little bit of text in there. My bad. All right, and I'll have to see about scaling. I don't know if I'm going to want to scale or not. Let's find out how I'm doing here. We'll put a background of light blue, and I'm going to stick in a draw sprites. Let's see how we're doing. Well, we're not doing too well, are we? Had to do a little refresh there. Okay, so that's starting to come around. My cactus is sitting there. My ship is over on the left-hand side. Now, my ship's going to need a little velocity, so I'm going to give it some velocity X, ship velocity X, and I'm not going to go too fast. I'll go 5. Let's try that. All right, so here's what I got. And really, this is going to be the basics of the program right there. There's not going to be a lot more that we're going to add, and there's going to be 4 different programs, but they're going to be very easy to switch out. Okay, so again, I'm going to reset it, run it. The ship comes flying across, and right now what it does is it just like flies right past the cactus. Okay, so this is where we start playing around with the relationships that we can use here and see what we can do. All right, so the first one I'm going to do is right here, pointing to it right now. It's called bounce. And it says sprite bounce target. All right, so I'm going to drag that in and drop it and look where I'm putting it. It's going right in the draw loop there. And I'm going to say ship. I'm taking the moving object and I'm going to tell it to bounce the stationary object. All right, so ship bounce cactus. What happens? There it is. A couple of things to notice, and I'll run it again while I'm talking about this, but the ship comes across. When it hits the cactus, it's kind of like all of the energy of the ship was transferred to the cactus. The cactus got bounced out of the picture, and the ship stopped moving. All right, so look at that relationship. When you do bounce, then this is ship bounce cactus. That's what you get. Okay. All right, so I'm going to rename this real quick, and I'm going to call it bounce, and I'll save that. Let's run that one more time, just for kicks and giggles. Boom. So what I'm wanting you to discover and get familiar in your mind with what happens when you use these things like bounce and bounce off and collide and displace, and what happens when you use them. And how can you start thinking about how can you use those to your advantage? Okay, so this one's done. Bounce is done. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to remix this, because if you think back to the handout, if you look at the handout, it's going to be 4 different programs with 4 different kinds of collisions: a bounce off, a collide, and a displace. All right. Well, I already did bounce. Bounce is done. Okay. Well, let's go back here. So I've remixed it. I'm going to rename it. I'm going to take out that remix, and this is going to be, I could make it one word, but I'm just going to do it. All right, this is going to be bounce off. And not much is going to change. It's not. All I'm going to do to change this up, to see what happens, is I'm going to pull out this block right here that's in the draw loop, the one that says ship bounce cactus. I'm just going to pull that out. This is all in the sprites drawer. These collision things are in the sprites drawer. And we're going to replace it with bounce off. And I'll have to make mine say ship bounce off cactus. Do you know what's going to happen? I bet you do. All right. Let's run it and find out. Ship comes flying in. Doink! Oh, there we go. And I mean, the name of the block kind of describes what's going to happen, right? The ship comes flying in, and as soon as it touches the cactus, as soon as it gets to the cactus, it bounces off of the cactus. The cactus is kind of like the firm, immovable object, and the ship comes flying in here, and doink, bounces right off of it. All right, so that is bounce off. We've got that one done. On to our third. Let's remix this. Let's rename this. And again, if I peek back at the handout, the third one is collide. It's just called collide. Okay. All right, so let's go back here and check it out. So I'm going to take, I need to rename it, COLLIDE, and I'm going to save that. This one's called collide. I'm going to take this out of there, back to the sprites drawer. All right, here it is. Sprite collide target, and that's going to be ship collide cactus. You'll do your own. I'm not giving you any starter code for this. All right, let's run that. What do you think is going to happen? There it is. All right, so in this case, the cactus becomes like it's kind of like it's planted, it's immovable, and the ship cannot push it away, and the ship doesn't bounce off of it. It's kind of like the cactus just stops the ship. Even though the ship had velocity assigned to it, the cactus has stopped the ship when you set it to collide. And that's good for like a wall, right? If you had a wall in a game, and a player's come along and they hit a wall, can't go past that wall because it is, if you set up a collide relationship there, ship collide cactus. So it comes across, it hits the cactus, it can't push the cactus, it doesn't bounce off the cactus. It's like the cactus is a true obstacle. Can't go around it really, unless you program it to go around it. All right, anyway, So that's collide, right? Cool. All right, so one last one to go. We're going to remix. We're going to rename. And again, if I check the handout here, I can always kind of look back at the handout. The last one is displace. All right, see, there they are. They're listed on the handout. Bounce, bounce off, collide, displace. So that's the 4 that we're going to do. All right. So let's remix, rename, and this is displace. Save that. All right, cool. Let's take out the collide block. We're not going to use that. We're going to use the displace block. All right. Oops. That's going to be ship displace cactus. Any predictions? You got predictions? Let's go. Let's run it. Here comes the ship. All right, so this time, and let's see that again. This time is kind of like the moving object, or the object has been set to displace the other object. It's like it's a snowplow, or right? The cactus can't hold it back. It doesn't slow down the momentum of the ship. The ship pushes the cactus away. It pushes it out of the picture and keeps moving, right? This does not slow the ship down. It does not stop the ship. It just pushes the cactus out of the way and keeps moving. So 4 different things that we've seen, right? We've seen bounce, bounce off, collide, and displace. Now in our next lesson, we're going to do a little bit something different with those 4 things. But for now, that is it. Make sure you turn those in, right? All 4 of those links. Share them, copy them, attach them, and hit turn in when you've got them all done. All right.